last time out, things were going very well until. But now moving on to lap 45. As you can see, his car doesn't shift down, and that means he's unable to get the car stopped in time. Now it's time for him to move on, as he makes not a long trip to the Sepang International Circuit for the Malaysian Grand Prix. So Formula 1 arrives for the final ever Malaysian Grand Prix at the Sepang International Circuit. It's an interesting track, but Buddy Simpson might have a bit of trouble because he's going to be having to use a fairly worn engine. But this track is not so as power sensitive. I mean, it does have two straights, but it's got plenty of corners around, so that shouldn't be as damaging for him as it may be on other circuits. So, it is now time for the qualifying report. With rain in the air, it looks set that qualifying for the Malaysian Grand Prix was going to be a damp affair. Sauber typically struggled as they were last out of the qualifiers. Fernando Alonso showed improvements, once again impressing and qualifying in P12, whilst Kvyat out-qualified Sainz once again. Kevin Magnussen starts at the back due to a grid penalty, whilst Felipe Massa was promoted into the top 10 due to penalties. Both Renaults made Q3 once again, whilst Force India once again impressed with 6th and 7th. Max Verstappen impressed to qualify in 3rd, whilst Lewis Hamilton starts down in P13 due to an engine penalty. It was an all-red front row as Sebastian Vettel took pole, closely followed by his teammate Kimi Raikkonen. So, taking a look at the grid for round 16, it's Vettel who starts on pole ahead of his teammate Kimi Raikkonen by 0.02 of a second. In 3rd, it is Max Verstappen ahead of Valtteri Bottas in 4th. Daniel Ricciardo starts in 5th ahead of Perez, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Simpson, with Massa rounding out the top 10. Grosjean qualifies in 11th ahead of Alonso, whilst Hamilton has it all to do from 13th. Kvyat starts 14th ahead of Sainz, Van Dorn, Stroll, Verline, with Ericsson and Magnussen rounding out the grid.
With me today to talk you through all that is Anthony Davidson, and welcome again. It's good to be back in Kuala Lumpur, isn't it? A lovely country, Malaysia, lovely circuit, and a race that tends to be quite hard to predict.
Yeah, it does indeed. There are a lot of high-energy corners that make the rear tyres suffer around here. Coupled with the excessive heat, that makes it difficult to keep your tyres in the right operating window. And of course, in previous years, we've come here very early in the season, which shows a potential reliability variable in there as well.
So, here Buddy is, sitting on the grid in Malaysia, in a fairly overcast Malaysia. It's expected to rain later on, but that was the least of Buddy's worries at the moment. There was drama even before the start. Guys, I think the power steering has failed. It was so heavy on the way to the grid.
Let me see. The power steering isn't there anymore. That's strange.
What? What? Dad, what are you doing here?
You want to race in Formula 1? You do it a man's race. Screw this power steering crap. Try racing without this. You want to race in Formula 1? Prove to me you can the hard way. Bobby, you can't do that. It's our property.
You really think taking out power steering is going to hinder me, Dad? Think again.
Right, no worries. We can just get a new power steering in.
Don't bother.
You kidding? You're going to rip your muscles driving without power steering, especially in Malaysia of all places to heat.
I'm a racing driver. I can handle that. I want to prove to my dad I can do it, just for this race.
Sure you can do it?
Yes, I'm positive.
Okay then. But there is rain expected. It's going to be very tough.
So, the formation lap at the Malaysian Grand Prix is about to get underway, but Buddy is driving without power steering, as you heard. There was worry that Bobby was going to break into the paddock after those rumours that surfaced in Singapore, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't expecting that to happen, for Bobby to get into the paddock and get onto the grid and smash the power steering of his car. And he did have the option to get a new power steering, but Buddy decided, right, if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to show it doesn't hinder me. So Buddy is driving without power steering, and that's actually not his only difficulty today. He's using a fairly worn engine, which is going to give him a bit of a power deficit, but I'm pretty sure he knows how to handle it. It's a fairly important formation lap here to get heat into the tyres needed to get a good start. It's a long run down to the first corner here, so it's crucial that Buddy gets a good start. So he lines up on the grid for the start of the Malaysian Grand Prix. So the rest of the cars are lining up on the grid as we are ready for lights out in Malaysia. Here we go. We have the lights in Sepang. Lights out, away we go. It wasn't a very long hold, but he doesn't get a great start. As you can see, the cars ahead are starting to move away and he's starting to get swamped a little bit. Obviously with the lack of power of the engine, but Buddy's going to dive it up the inside. A little bit of contact there with the two Force Indias, but he has just about got away with it. There is a little bit of front wing damage, but that shouldn't affect him. As you can see, he's side by side with Lewis Hamilton on the exit of turn 2 into turn 3. Lewis Hamilton obviously with that grid penalty, but Buddy is up to P8, so he has made up a position off the start, and that is kind of what he needs. Like, his teammate though has dropped back a bit. Buddy is currently just feeling the car. I mean, he seems to be suffering with a little bit of oversteer, but it seems to be just about manageable, this understeer that he's dealing with. But as you can see, he understeers a little bit going into the double right-hander, and Esteban Ocon gets through. As you can see, he's got his teammate on the outside, but Buddy is able to defend that position on the exit of, I believe that, I'm not sure what corner number it is, but Buddy has defended the position. So moving on to the end of lap 2, as you can see, Buddy's still in P9, but he's got the Williams of Felipe Massa in the Mercedes-powered Williams behind, DRS enabled. This was going to make things very tricky, especially with the lack of power, and Buddy was already starting to get irked by the lack of power of his car. Honestly guys, how can I race with this little power? As you can hear there, Buddy getting very irked by the lack of power of his very worn engine. At the moment he is doing some fuel saving right now in some ways to give him more power for later on, which he may need considering that. As you can see, Buddy is struggling a little bit with understeer. I mean, he has got a damaged wing, but not much, but he is still struggling with understeer. And you can see heading into the double right-hander, Buddy runs a little bit wide, and you can see Felipe Massa has the run heading up towards this left-hander. Buddy tries to defend, but there's a little bit of contact, and Massa going for a really small gap there, and he has made that move stick. But then, as you can see, the next major action of the race came as the rain arrived. As you can see, a few cars coming in earlier. Buddy follows them all in order to make sure that he makes the right tyre choice. So into the pits he comes. He's not changing the wing right now because he feels like he doesn't need to right now. It's not really hindering him that much, so he comes into the pits to put on a set of the intermediate tyre. So into the pits he comes, changes to inters, and he releases the limiter in P12, but with many cars still yet to pit. And if it continues to rain, the guys on the slick tyres could actually start to struggle a bit. But they were all able to tiptoe back to the pits without losing too much time, so which meant that we couldn't gain a position. As you can see, now it's lap 13 and the rain has further intensified, and we are coming in for a set of the full wet tyre. So, into the pits comes Buddy for the second time today. And he exits in P10, exactly where he was before, still trying to chase down Esteban Ocon. So we remained in P10 for a while afterwards. Really not been the most exciting race for us at this point, but we've had a fairly reasonable run of things. But as you can see, the Williams of Felipe Massa ahead has retired from the race, which gives us a position, and there is actually a virtual safety car. I mean, that didn't really play to our advantage or cost us. As you can see, we have now caught up to the Force India of Esteban Ocon, who seems to be struggling with some sort of car issue, maybe a front wing. But as you can see, the conditions are starting to dry out now. Buddy's, though, getting really held up behind Ocon. He's going to see if he can make the move, but they're both going to be coming in at the end of this lap for intermediate tyres. And Buddy is also going to change the wing, as he has a decent gap behind, so he can afford to make that change. So he thought, why not make the change? To get better pace, particularly when it comes to dry. As you can see, we are switching, and actually we make more contact with Ocon on entrance to pits. He really caught us off guard entering. So you can see, we go to change front wing, but we accidentally switched to wets, and by the time that happened, we can't do anything about it, because once you've committed that far, it locks your tyre choice, and in that fast we get a 5-second stop go. But this is going to completely wreck our race. Not so much the 5-second stop and go, but the fact that we're basically making a pointless pit stop now, due to basically that the arrows are so sensitive on my thing, my steering wheel, that the change was accidentally made. But obviously the team have messed up in some way here. As you can see, he exited in P9, which would have been good if he was on the inters. He tried to brave it out, but Buddy was so confused.
What the guys? Why are we put on another set of full wets?
Really sorry, we got the wrong tyres. Massive cock up. Try to brave it out, but if not, you need to box.
Oh, for sake. Well, there goes some points then.
So obviously, understandably so, Buddy is not happy with his team's mistake, because it has just completely ruined his race. As you can see, he is struggling so much. There's no way he's continuing on these tyres. You can see Grosjean just breezes past. He tried to brave it out for another lap, but he was just getting nowhere. He was losing too much time, so he decided to pit in, and this has just completely screwed his race. So into the pits he comes. Obviously he's going to have to serve the penalty. The 5-second time penalty. before changing to the intermediates, and he has dropped so far down the order, down into P16. So it's going to be an increasingly uphill struggle for Buddy to score points. He opted to make an early switch to the slick tyres because obviously he could afford to take that risk because his race was screwed anyway, so he needed to take some risk if he was going to score today, something that alone was looking unlikely even if it did work, but it was worth trying. So Buddy comes into the pits for his final scheduled stop onto the soft tyre. He couldn't change to the super soft unfortunately, and that's going to disadvantage him even further because he doesn't have a set of super softs that is useful when everyone else does, and obviously that causes problems pace wise, and also Buddy has to respond to blue flags. Unfortunately, not really anything would come for the race. Despite using the rich mix for the rest of the race, he wasn't able to make any inroads, so he crossed the line to finish in P16. Obviously very upset with it, and this is what his response was.
Honestly, what the heck happened with the tyre choices? Well, at least I proved to my dad I can drive without power steering.
So taking a look at the final result from this race, obviously disappointing race for Renault as a whole because no points for them. As you can see, Hulkenberg only managed 12th, so not really a good day for the team in yellow. And obviously Buddy unable to score due to that team error. Really, it was due to the oversensitivity of my number pad on my steering wheel. As you can see, Maurizio Arrivabene celebrating a win for Ferrari. It was Kimi Raikkonen who took the win here in Malaysia for Ferrari. So obviously a good day for them. But actually one thing also to note in the constructors standings, unfortunately Renault have actually dropped behind Haas in the constructors, so obviously they need to rectify that in the final 5 Grand Prix still to go this season. As you can see, Kimi Raikkonen celebrating a win. So it's the 3rd race in a row without points for Buddy, but the question was, can Buddy bounce back as F1 moves to the thrilling Suzuka circuit?